First contact over coffee. Dr. Marcus Chen stared at his reflection in the kitchen window, watching steam rise from his morning coffee. At 58, his salt and pepper hair and worn cardigan painted the perfect picture of a retired xenolinguist who'd traded decoding potential alien signals for tending to his prized hydroponic garden. 25 years of listening to the stars had yielded nothing but cosmic static and academic papers that gathered dust in university archives. Now his most exciting conversations were with his tomato plants, which, unlike potential extraterrestrial civilizations, at least responded with measurable growth. The familiar hum of his home's environmental systems suddenly changed pitch. Marcus frowned, lowering his coffee cup. The sound wasn't coming from inside the house. It was coming from above. The morning light dimmed as if a cloud had passed overhead, but the shadow that fell across his kitchen was far too geometric to be weather-related. He stepped onto his back porch, coffee forgotten. Hovering 30 feet above his carefully cultivated vegetation was a vessel that defied terrestrial engineering. It resembled a tetrahedron composed of what appeared to be liquid metal, its surface rippling like mercury in the morning sun. "Well," Marcus muttered, "I suppose I should have kept my radio equipment after all." The vessel descended with impossible grace, touching down among his hydroponic towers without disturbing a single leaf. A seam appeared in its seamless surface, flowing open like water parting. 3 figures emerged, and Marcus felt his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. They were humanoid, but that's where terrestrial comparisons ended. Their skin had a crystalline quality, semi-transparent in places, with what appeared to be bioluminescent patterns flowing beneath the surface. Each stood roughly 7 feet tall, with proportions that suggested both strength and elegance. Their eyes were multifaceted, like diamonds catching light, but clearly capable of expression. Dr. Marcus Chen, the central figure, spoke, their voice carrying harmonics that made his wind chimes resonate. "We are the Astran diplomatic triad. I am first speaker Lyra." She gestured to her companions. "Second speaker Vega, and third speaker Cassiopeia." Marcus found himself grateful for decades of academic training that kept his voice steady. "Welcome to Earth. I'd offer you coffee, but I'm not certain about your biochemistry." A sound like wind through crystal chimes emerged from the trio. Laughter, he realized. "Your reputation for combining scientific curiosity with hospitality is well-founded," Lyra said. "We've been studying your transmissions, particularly your papers on xenolinguistics and cultural integration theory." "My papers?" Marcus blinked. "Those were theoretical frameworks for potential first contact scenarios. I never imagined." He paused, a thought striking him. "How long have you been monitoring our communications?" "Long enough to know that you were the one human who consistently got it right," Vega said, her voice carrying lower harmonics that made his potted plants vibrate gently. "Your theories about nonverbal universal communication matrices, they're remarkably similar to our own first contact protocols." Cassiopeia stepped forward, her movements fluid and precise. "We've come with a proposal, Dr. Chen. The Astran Confederation seeks to establish formal relations with Earth, but we require someone who understands both the theoretical and practical aspects of cultural integration." "You need an ambassador," Marcus said, his mind racing ahead. "Someone who can help prevent misunderstandings between our species." "More than an ambassador," Lyra corrected. "We seek a bond partner. In our culture, diplomatic relations begin with personal connections. We 3 represent the primary aspects of Astran society: science, culture, and harmony. Together, we form a triad." "And you want me to join this triad?" Marcus asked, his academic detachment starting to crack under the weight of realization. "Yes," they said in unison, their harmonics creating a chord that made his entire garden resonate. "Through our cultural exchange protocols, we would form a bond that transcends mere diplomatic relations. It would be, in your terms, a marriage of minds and cultures." Marcus looked at his abandoned coffee cup through the kitchen window, then back at the 3 extraordinary beings standing in his garden. 25 years of theoretical xenolinguistics hadn't prepared him for this moment. Or maybe, he realized, they had prepared him perfectly. Before I answered, he said carefully, I have about 1,000 questions about cultural compatibility, biological differences, and the implications for Earth-Astran relations. We would expect nothing less from the author of Cross-Cultural Constants in Xenosocietal Integration, Cassiopeia said, her tone carrying what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. Let's start with those questions, Lyra suggested, and perhaps we can try that coffee after all. Our environmental suits can process it safely. As Marcus led them inside, he couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. He'd spent his life reaching for the stars, and now they were about to sit at his kitchen table and critique his coffee-making technique. Sometimes, he realized, the universe had a sense of humor after all. Later, he would learn that this moment, this simple act of inviting them in for coffee, would be recorded in both Earth and Astran histories as the pivotal point in their civilization's convergence. But for now, he just needed to remember where he'd stored his extra mugs. Learning their ways. The next few days in Marcus's home became an impromptu cultural exchange center. His living room, once cluttered with dusty linguistics journals and half-finished crossword puzzles, now housed 3 crystalline beings who turned everyday moments into fascinating discoveries. Your beverage rituals are remarkably similar to our communion of essences, Vega observed one morning, watching Marcus prepare his 4th cup of coffee. The environmental suits they wore had been modified to allow for Earth-based consumption, leading to what Marcus could only describe as an addiction to terrestrial caffeine. Though your version lacks the psychic resonance, Cassiopeia added, her crystalline features refracting morning light across the kitchen walls. Still, the social bonding aspect remains consistent. Marcus had learned to read their bioluminescent patterns. Bright pulses meant excitement, slow waves indicated contemplation, and rapid flickers usually preceded questions. Right now, all 3 were displaying the swirling patterns he'd come to associate with scientific curiosity. Speaking of resonance, he said, settling into what had become their regular morning discussion position, you still haven't fully explained how this bond partnership would work. I understand the diplomatic aspects, but the personal implications seem complex. Lyra's patterns shifted to a deep, steady glow. In Astran society, we believe in complete harmony between diplomatic, personal, and spiritual connections. The triad system evolved from this belief. She paused, her faceted eyes catching the light. Each member brings unique perspectives and abilities. Together, we become more than the sum of our parts. Like a crystalline structure, Marcus mused, his academic mind making connections. Each molecule aligned to create something stronger and more complex than individual atoms. Exactly. Vega's excitement made her environmental suit's translation matrix struggle to keep up. This is why we chose you, Marcus. You don't just study communication. You understand the underlying patterns that connect all sentient beings. The conversation was interrupted by a news alert on Marcus's tablet. The world had noticed the alien ship in his backyard, despite the Astran's attempts at discretion. Government vehicles were already on their way. Perhaps, Cassiopeia said, her patterns showing concern, we should explain the next phase of our proposal before your planet's authorities arrive. Lyra stepped forward, her crystalline form seeming to gather light around her. Marcus, on our world, the bond partnership ceremony involves a process we call the resonance sharing. Through it, partners gain the ability to understand each other on a level that transcends conventional communication. You mean telepathy? Marcus asked, his scientific skepticism warring with the evidence of advanced alien technology before him. More like quantum entanglement of consciousness, Vega explained. Our crystalline biology allows us to share neural patterns. With the help of our technology, we can extend this connection to compatible species. And you think I'm compatible? Marcus raised an eyebrow, gesturing to his very human, very non-crystalline form. Your mind already shows signs of natural resonance, Cassiopeia said. Your work in xenolinguistics, your ability to recognize patterns in seemingly random signals, these aren't just skills, they're indicators of compatibility. The distant sound of helicopters made them all look up. Marcus could see military aircraft approaching on the horizon. His quiet retirement was definitely over. "How long does this resonance sharing take?" he asked, making mental calculations about how much time they had before his backyard became a government facility. "The initial connection takes moments," Lyra explained. "The full integration, that's a journey of discovery. Each partnership develops uniquely, building new neural pathways, sharing memories and understanding." Marcus looked at his coffee cup, then at the three extraordinary beings who had appended his quiet life. In the distance, he could hear sirens approaching. The world was about to change, one way or another. "You know," he said, standing up, "I spent my career theorizing about first contact scenarios. I wrote papers about the importance of taking chances, about being open to radical new perspectives." He straightened his cardigan. "It would be rather hypocritical of me to back out now just because the reality is more personal than I expected." The triad's patterns synchronized in what he now recognized as joy. "Then you accept?" They asked in harmony, their voices creating that strange resonant chord that made everything in the room vibrate slightly. "Yes," Marcus said, surprising himself with how right it felt. "Though I have one condition. We need to figure out how to explain this to the Earth authorities without causing an interplanetary incident." "Already planned for," Vega said, her patterns showing amusement. "We have extensive diplomatic protocols for such situations, though I must admit, none of our previous first contact scenarios involved quite so much coffee." As government vehicles began pulling up outside, Marcus couldn't help but laugh. He'd wanted to bridge the gap between worlds, to prove his theories about universal communication patterns. He just hadn't expected to do it by becoming part of an alien marriage quartet. The doorbell rang. Outside, he could see men in dark suits, military officers, and what appeared to be every news van in the state. "Well," he said, straightening his shoulders, "shall we go introduce our families?" The triad's harmonious laughter filled the room, their crystalline forms glowing with anticipation. As they moved toward the door together, Marcus realized that his life's work hadn't ended with retirement. It had only been preparing him for this moment. "Would you like me to continue with part 3, where we explore their journey to the Astran homeworld and the challenges they face?" Journey to the stars. After 3 months of earthbound diplomatic negotiations, endless press conferences, and what Marcus considered far too many medical examinations, they were finally ready to depart. The Astran vessel hovered above the NASA launch facility, its liquid metal surface reflecting the sunset like a mirror made of dreams. "Your belongings have been properly converted for quantum storage," Lyra informed him as they prepared to board. After the initial media frenzy, she had become the primary spokesperson for their unusual union, her natural diplomatic skills smoothing over countless potential conflicts. Marcus looked at his life's possessions, now reduced to what appeared to be a crystal the size of his thumb. "And you're sure my books survived the process? Some of those are first editions. Every atom perfectly preserved," Vega assured him, her scientist's enthusiasm showing in her brightened patterns. "Though I still don't understand your attachment to physical books when you could access entire libraries telepathically. Let's master basic resonance sharing before we try downloading the Library of Congress directly into my brain," Marcus replied dryly. The past months had given him a crash course in Astran humor, which often involved literal interpretations of human idioms. The boarding process itself was unlike anything in his scientific experience. The vessel's liquid metal surface parted like mercury, creating an entrance that felt more like stepping through a waterfall made of starlight. Inside, the ship defied terrestrial physics. The internal space operates on different dimensional principles, Cassiopeia explained, noting his bewildered expression. "It's larger inside than outside because parts of it exist in parallel space-time configurations. Like my old office at the university," Marcus quipped. earning him a ripple of crystalline laughter from the triad. He'd learned that making jokes helped him cope with the moments when reality became too extraordinary to process rationally. As Earth diminished below them, Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions. The resonance sharing they'd begun on Earth had created a subtle link between him and the triad, allowing him to sense their excitement at returning home and their concern for his comfort. The journey takes 3 Earth days, Lyra said, leading him to what they called the observation chamber. Though time flows differently here, it's an excellent opportunity to begin your deeper integration into Astran consciousness. The observation chamber turned out to be a space where the ship's walls became completely transparent, offering a view of space that no human had ever experienced. Stars streaked past in patterns that made Marcus's eyes water until Vega adjusted something in his environmental suit. "Better?" she asked. "Your neural pathways are still adapting to multi-dimensional perception. The suit helps filter the excess input until your mind learns to process it naturally." Marcus nodded, grateful for the adjustment. "I feel like I should be taking notes." Day 1. Discovered human brains not equipped for 4th-dimensional space travel. Memo. Evolution needs to catch up. Your humor masks anxiety. Cassiopeia observed, her patterns showing concern. The next phase of resonance sharing may help with that. It will allow you to experience space travel as we do. The process they described involved all 4 of them, connecting on a deeper mental level. They sat in a circle in the observation chamber, the infinite cosmos whirling around them as the ship traveled through what Vega called fold space. "Ready?" Lyra asked, her crystalline form glowing with anticipation. Marcus took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be. Though I should warn you, my mind tends to wander to random linguistic theories when I'm nervous." "Perfect," Vega said, her patterns brightening. "Random connections often create the strongest resonances." The initial connection felt like diving into a pool of liquid light. Marcus's consciousness expanded, touching minds that perceived reality in ways his human brain struggled to comprehend. Colors had sounds, thoughts had textures, and space itself seemed to sing with complex harmonies he'd never known existed. Through their shared perception, he began to understand the true nature of their journey. The ship wasn't simply traveling through space. It was dancing between the frequencies of reality, finding paths that existed in the harmonics between dimensions. "This," he gasped, "this is how you discovered Earth. You didn't just listen for radio signals. You felt the resonance of our entire civilization." "Yes," they responded in unison, their thoughts intertwining with his. "And your mind called to us most strongly, already reaching for understanding beyond your physical limitations." The journey became a blur of discoveries and adjustments. Marcus learned to navigate the ship's impossible architecture, each room existing in a slightly different dimension. He discovered that Astran technology wasn't just advanced, it was alive in its own way, responding to the collective consciousness of its occupants. By the 3rd day, or what felt like 3 days, time behaved strangely in fold space. Marcus had mastered basic mental navigation of the ship's systems. He could sense its course through the quantum foam of reality, feel the subtle adjustments as it wove between dimensions. "We're approaching the Astran system," Lyra announced, though by now the words were almost redundant. Marcus could feel their home star's unique resonance, a symphony of gravitational forces and electromagnetic harmonies. As they emerged from fold space, the Astran system bloomed before them like a garden of light. 3 suns danced in an eternal ballet, their worlds moving in perfect harmony. The Astran homeworld itself was a crystalline sphere that seemed to sing with the light of its triple stars. "Welcome," the triad said together, their joy radiating through their shared connection, "to your new home." Marcus stared at the impossible beauty before him, his scientist's mind cataloging details even as his human heart swelled with emotion. He'd dreamed of the stars his whole life, written countless theories about alien civilizations. Now he was about to become part of one. "It's beautiful," he said simply, knowing they could feel the depth of his awe through their connection. "Though I have to ask, Please tell me you have coffee there." Their laughter resonated through both their mental link and the ship's structure, creating a harmony that Marcus was beginning to recognize as the sound of his new family. Trials of acceptance. The Astran capital city defied Marcus's attempts at description. Crystalline spires rose in harmonious geometries, their surfaces alive with flowing light patterns that he now recognized as city-wide communications. The triple suns created an ever-shifting dance of rainbows through the transparent structures, turning the entire metropolis into a living prism. "The council awaits," Lyra announced as their vessel docked at a platform that seemed to float on light itself. "They're curious about our choice." Marcus felt the undercurrent of tension through their shared resonance. "You mean they're skeptical about bonding with a primitive human who can't even photosynthesize properly?" "Actually," Vega's patterns flickered with amusement. "They're more concerned about your fondness for coffee. The concept of voluntary chemical stimulant dependence is quite controversial here." The council chamber resided at the heart of the city, a vast dodecahedron whose faceted walls reflected not just light, but thoughts themselves. As they entered, Marcus saw their arrival from 12 different perspectives, simultaneously, his enhanced perception struggling to process the multiple layers of reality. 7 counselors awaited them, their crystalline forms more elaborate and ancient than any Astrans Marcus had yet seen. Their thought patterns felt like vast libraries, millennia of knowledge swirling in complex fractals. "Welcome, Marcus Chen of Earth." The first counselor's thoughts resonated directly in his mind. "We have observed your species' development with great interest. Though we must admit, this particular development was unexpected." Through their strengthened bond, Marcus felt his 3 partners' subtle support, their consciousness helping him navigate the complex protocols of Astran formal communication. He straightened his shoulders, remembering he was no longer just a retired xenolinguist. He was a diplomat representing his entire species. "Honorable Council," he responded, carefully modulating his thoughts as Cassiopeia had taught him. "Unexpected developments often lead to the most significant advances in understanding. My own species' history is filled with accidental discoveries that changed everything." Indeed, another counselor's patterns shifted thoughtfully. "Yet this is not merely a scientific exchange. The triad bond is sacred, fundamental to our society's structure. No off-worlder has ever been considered suitable." "Perhaps," Marcus replied. "That's exactly why it's necessary. Both our peoples stand at a crucial junction. We can either remain separate, maintaining careful diplomatic distances, or we can forge deeper connections that transform both societies." He felt rather than saw his partner's approval. Lyra's diplomatic expertise flowed through their bond, helping him navigate the complex currents of council politics. Vega's scientific precision sharpened his arguments, while Cassiopeia's harmony helped him maintain emotional balance. "You propose that this personal union could serve as a template for broader cultural integration." The first counselor's patterns showed intense interest. "I propose that it already has." Marcus gestured to his environmental suit. "Your technologies have been adapted to support human biology. My mind has been enhanced to comprehend Astran multiple-dimensional perception. We're creating new methods of communication and understanding with every passing moment." A ripple of thought patterns passed through the council. Marcus caught fragments of their rapid exchange. Concern about cultural contamination warring with excitement about new possibilities. "There is precedent," Vega added, her scientific authority evident in her resonance. "Our own history speaks of the first binding, when the original crystalline species merged with the energy beings who taught us resonance technology." The council chamber filled with harmonic overtones as the counselors communicated in frequencies too complex for Marcus to follow, even with his enhanced perception. Finally, the first counselor's patterns stabilized. "We will require proof," they announced. "The traditional trials of binding must be adapted for your unique situation, but their essence must remain intact. Are you prepared to undergo challenges that may fundamentally alter your understanding of reality?" Marcus felt a moment of pure human panic, quickly steadied by the warmth of his partner's support flowing through their bond. "I've already had to explain to my mother why I'm marrying 3 alien crystalline beings," he said. "I doubt reality can get much more altered than that." The chamber filled with the chiming sound of Astran laughter, a harmony of crystalline tones that made the walls themselves resonate. Even the most serious counselors showed patterns of amusement. "The trials will begin at the next convergence of our suns," the first counselor declared. "Until then, your triad partners will prepare you," and Marcus Chen of Earth. Their patterns shifted to show what he was learning to recognize as respect. "We look forward to seeing how your species' particular adaptability approaches our traditional challenges." As they left the chamber, Marcus felt the weight of what lay ahead. "So," he asked his partners, "exactly how dangerous are these trials going to be?" "Oh, nothing too severe." Vega's patterns flickered with what he was pretty sure was suppressed worry. "Just a few tests of mental resilience, physical adaptation, and quantum consciousness integration." "Don't forget the void dance," Cassiopeia added. "The what now?" "Perhaps," Lyra interjected diplomatically. "We should discuss the details over coffee. We've set up a cultural exchange cafe in the diplomatic quarter. It's becoming quite popular among the younger generation." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing strangely through his environmental suit. "You're telling me I've already started changing Astran society just by introducing them to caffeine?" "Change goes both ways," Cassiopeia reminded him, her patterns showing deep affection. "Just wait until you try photosynthesizing for the first time." As they made their way through the crystalline city, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come from his quiet garden on Earth. He was about to face trials designed to test beings made of living crystal and quantum resonance. Yet somehow, surrounded by the combined consciousness of his new family, he felt more at home than ever. "By the way," he said as they approached what appeared to be a crystal structure shaped like a giant coffee cup, "exactly what is a void dance?" The triad's patterns all shifted to what he'd learned was their equivalent of a mischievous grin. "One step at a time, dear husband," Lyra said. "One step at a time. Building bridges." The 3 suns of the Astran system aligned perfectly overhead, their combined light creating patterns that Marcus's enhanced perception now recognized as nature's own quantum equations. He stood in the center of the trial arena, a vast crystalline amphitheater that seemed to float in midair above the capital city. The past month of preparation had transformed him in ways his former self would have considered impossible. His environmental suit had evolved, becoming less a protective shell and more a second skin that allowed him to interface directly with Astran technology. His mind had expanded, learning to process multiple dimensions of reality simultaneously. "The final trial begins," announced the first counselor, their thoughts resonating through the gathered crowd of thousands of Astrans. "The void dance awaits." Marcus felt his partner's consciousness brush against his through their bond. After weeks of intensive training, their connection had deepened beyond mere telepathy into something approaching quantum entanglement. "Remember," Lyra's thoughts touched his gently, "the void dance isn't about controlling the quantum foam. It's about becoming one with it." "Just like our first coffee date," Marcus replied, earning a ripple of crystalline amusement from his partners. Humor had become his anchor through the increasingly reality-bending trials. The arena's floor dissolved, revealing the swirling quantum void beneath reality itself. To his untrained human eyes, it once would have appeared as empty space. Now he could see the dancing patterns of probability, the threads of potential that wove the universe together. "Begin," the council commanded. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped off the edge of reality. The void embraced him like an ocean of possibilities, each quantum fluctuation a note in the universe's symphony. Through their bond, he felt his partners join their consciousness with his, their combined perception expanding to encompass the dance of creation itself. This was the true purpose of the triad bond, not just diplomatic alliance or personal connection, but the ability to perceive and influence reality on its most fundamental level. Together, they began to move through the quantum foam, their combined consciousness weaving patterns in the fabric of space-time. The audience gasped as visible manifestations of their dance appeared in normal space, crystalline structures growing and dissolving, light bending in impossible ways, reality itself responding to their harmonized intentions. Now, Vega's thoughts guided him. Show them why we chose you. Marcus reached deep into his human heritage, drawing on something the Astrans hadn't expected: imagination. Where they saw patterns to be followed, he saw patterns to be reinvented. His consciousness pushed against the boundaries of possibility, not trying to control the quantum foam but inviting it to play. The arena filled with a display unlike anything the Astrans had ever seen. Earth's double helix DNA patterns spiraled upward, transforming into Astran crystalline structures, then merging into entirely new forms of potential life. Mathematical equations danced with poetry, science twisted into art, and the very fabric of space-time began to sing with both human and Astran harmonies. This, Marcus projected his thoughts to the entire assembly, is what our peoples can create together. Not just an exchange of knowledge, but a synthesis of different ways of understanding reality itself. The Void Dance concluded with a flourish of quantum possibilities, leaving the arena filled with echoes of harmonies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. As Marcus and his partners reformed on solid ground, the silence was absolute. The first counselor's patterns shifted through colors Marcus had never seen before. In all our history, they announced, no Void Dance has ever created new possibilities. We followed the patterns. You showed us how to change them. That's what humans do, Marcus replied, standing proudly with his partners. We look at what is and imagine what could be. And now, with your help, we can actually make those possibilities real. The Council's decision was unanimous. The Triad Bond was not just approved. It was celebrated as the beginning of a new era for both civilizations. The ceremony that followed combined traditions from both worlds, including what Marcus insisted on calling a quantum toast with specially prepared space coffee. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Marcus stood with his partners in their private quarters, watching the three suns set in a cascade of impossible colors. You know, he said, when I was a young xenolinguist dreaming about first contact, I never imagined it would end up like this. End up. Lyra's patterns showed amusement. My dear Marcus, this is just the beginning. Wait until you see what happens when we introduce Earth's arts to Astran quantum engineering. Or when we show human scientists how to really manipulate DNA, Vega added excitedly. Or when we take you dancing in the corona of our suns, Cassiopeia finished. Marcus laughed, the sound harmonizing perfectly with their crystalline tones. As long as I can bring coffee, I'm ready for anything. Their patterns synchronized in joy, creating a light show that rippled through multiple dimensions. Through their bond, Marcus felt their shared future stretching out before them. Endless possibilities, discoveries, and adventures, all illuminated by the light of three suns and the warmth of four hearts beating in quantum harmony. By the way, he added, has anyone told Earth that their first alien ambassador is technically now part of a quantum consciousness collective? We thought we'd leave that explanation to you, his partners replied in unison, their amusement radiating through their bond. After all, you're the communication expert. As the last sun set, Marcus Chen, former xenolinguist, current quantum diplomat, and forever student of the impossible, embraced his new reality. Somewhere between the stars and dimensions, between human determination and Astran wisdom, they had created something entirely new, and it was beautiful. Would you like me to provide an engaging SEO-optimized title and description for this complete story now?